Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second week of Gemini season. So, if you've ever looked at a horoscope and you've scanned towards the section of Gemini, you might have seen something about communication or talking or restlessness, right? That's kind of the really superficial level of astrology that you may see for this particular sign. So if you're new to Connect the Dots, I just wanted to say welcome. And if you're joining this live, welcome also. And please post your questions below if you have them as we're continuing. If you've been coming along with Connect the Dots for the last few months at least, you'll know that we follow the solar cycles. And what I mean by that is in breaking from tradition and looking at or sort of scheduling life per the start and end dates, June 1st to June 30th, May 1st to May 31st. The rhythm of how I post content on this particular channel, on this publication, is by following the sun's transit through the zodiac. And so last week, the sun transited from the sign of Taurus to the sign of Gemini. And I include other planetary transits as well. So every month we have a full moon and a new moon. And so I sit with the energies, the feeling, the sentiment, a little bit of what's coming up for me personally, what I'm hearing with people around me. And in my role as an alchemist, I sit and synthesize this information and I share a little tidbit or a summary with you every week within the week of the month that we're exploring. So in Gemini season, we're obviously going to look at communication, but there are layers to that. There are a lot of deep and enriching layers, in fact, to all of the energetics of the zodiac, right? What we call the zodiac signs. And this is where we remember that astrology is this ancient logic that helps us compassionately appreciate and understand the levels and layers of wholeness that we are, because we are in fact all of the signs expressed differently in different ways in different areas of life. And with that compassionate understanding of self, we can then perhaps enhance our capacity to love others, love the world, appreciate and discern with more grace. And so that is the essence of my publication and Connect the Dots. So thank you for coming along. Hi, Catherine. So nice for you to join. So in Gemini season, if you've been following along or if you're just new here, I'll give you a little recap. In in Aries season, and Aries is the initiatory, the start of the zodiac cycle. In the Northern Hemisphere, it aligns with spring, so that's always lovely. And in Aries, we explored different ways of what that initiation, ignition, idea, creative spark felt like. So if you missed any of those videos, you can absolutely go back and look at them. And then we moved into Taurus season, where we explored the beauty way. And the beauty way is a way to understand what we truly value and what nourishes us. In a way, these two signs, Aries, the fire sign, Taurus, the earth sign, are oriented within the self. Aries is, I am, who am I? Taurus is more concerned with what I have, the resources, my body, my food systems, wealth, money are often associated with Taurus. And in Gemini, the orientation changes a little bit. So Gemini is the first dualistic sign of the zodiac. And by this, I mean, we can also look at each of the signs of the zodiac, each of the phases, as evolution of consciousness, right? So in Gemini, our evolution of consciousness is now oriented towards there's a self and there's an other. And this is that whole communication aspect of Gemini, where there is now an other. Now we can chat, now we can talk, right? And so I'm going to talk about the whole communication part next week, but I wanted to sort of do a pre-communication setup for this week. So this is the second week of Gemini season. And in this second week, I wanted to talk about about the aspect of ourselves that now perceives duality. So the glyph of Gemini is the twins. And in Greek mythology, the twins are Castor and Pollux, the divine twin and the mortal twin. And so we can look at this as different aspects of ourselves. The mortal, material, the part of ourselves that dies, and then the divine, immortal part of ourselves. And what type of communication are they having? We can look at it more practically as the world around us, as others, right? But a big part of Gemini that I mentioned is this perceiving, when we perceive duality. And how does our body perceive that? Well, through our sense organs, right? We look at the world, we smell, we feel, we hear, we taste, we touch, and then that information flows in to our brain. Our mind then now perceives all of this information, creating a map of the world around us, and is also creating a map of the self, right? Through all of this information. Our perception, in fact, shapes our mind and shapes our filters. And through this shaped mind, shaped lens, that is how we perceive the world back out. And that is what builds the mechanism of how we communicate. It shapes our tone, it shapes our beliefs, certainly. It shapes our cadence, the orientation, our style of communicating. All of this is all of the way that we communicate, the things that we may not have a lot of awareness to. It is so greatly shaped by what we take in. So this is that aspect of Gemini that is more, it's about communicating, sure, but communicating is not talking. This is, before sort of, if we dig a little bit and go before communicating, we are perceiving, we are listening, we are absorbing, we are taking in. And so the reason I bring that up today is in the second week of the season, we have, and this is life, this is normal life for all of us. There is information flying left, right, and center, right? Certainly, conversations that we pick up, conversations that we have, but also information that we perceive because of situations that we are in, situational information that we absorb, again, through all our sense organs. Certainly there is emotional or relational, there's lots of opinions, there's news, there is information about experiences that we are in or experiences that we are not in that is drawing all of this information towards us, drawing all of these bits and bytes into us, and then creating this map of perception, this filter of perception. Because the truth is, at any given time, all the world is communicating with us constantly. Each one of our cells in our body, trillions and trillions of cells, are in constant communication with each other. And the whole world works like this, right? So the energy of Gemini, the medicine of Gemini, is how are we processing it? How are we processing all of this energy that is coming into us? Because it is, in fact, whether we're conscious of it or not, shaping how we communicate. And so are we filtering out? Are we ignoring things? Do we take everything in and at the end of the day, we take time to distill it and process it out? Right? This is where practices of meditation or movement are so helpful, because it helps us build the discipline to figure out and see where our perceptions are getting pixelated by other people's energy, by things that aren't really relevant anymore, right? Maybe they made a lot of sense when we were children, when we were younger. Maybe it made a lot of sense a week ago or in those old relationships that we had, but it no longer makes sense to do that now. And I see this a lot, in how people reflect on their conversations with ChatGPT. For example, I saw this great piece about how someone expressed that talking to ChatGPT is like talking to your higher self, right? Because what is this tool doing? The tool is taking an input, like you're feeding it your raw information. You're like, I feel this way, I don't like this, I like this, and you send it to this, to ChatGPT, which is a tool. It's a technological tool. And this tool absorbs that information, refines it, processes it at great speed, and then gives you something with clarity, right? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. That really depends on your relationship to pieces of technology, to the different tools and how they work for you. And so this is partially how this is a little bit how it happens with us as well. And I tend to use technology as a way of divination, as a way to remind myself, oh, this is actually, how I also work. So am I taking time to review it? Am I taking things for granted? Am I taking my day for granted, absorbing all of this information, doing absolutely nothing with it, and holding on to it unconsciously? And if I'm doing that, not that that's bad or wrong, but there are implications to this. The more things we are unconscious of, the more we unconsciously engage with, communicate with, and perceive our world. And so that's the invitation today on, Gemini is an air sign. Air signs are associated with the mental body. And there are other planets in Gemini. Mercury, the ruler of the planet, is in Gemini right now. We just had a new moon in Gemini. And so what that means, very simplistically, is that there is a lot of energy and more opportunity for awareness into our mental body. So if we want to tend to it, we tend to our body by feeding it, by giving it sleep. How do we tend to our minds? How do we clear our minds, right? It's sort of like when your computer, you haven't rebooted it in a long time and you have files from like 35 years ago. You actually have to go and archive some files, delete some stuff, clear cache, clear cookies. And then your computer, the system works faster. Our minds are like that as well. The more gunk we have from the entirety of our lives, from opinions of other people, stuff someone else said, emotions, opinions that aren't even ours, the more gunk that's in there, the harder it is for the illuminated nature of our minds, for our divine self to communicate with our mortal material self. And so this is a reminder, more than any other time of the year. I feel like springtime in the Northern Hemisphere in Gemini season is a really good time to cultivate a meditation practice of your choosing, where you can come to some stillness in your mind and you can hear your actual original thoughts, not the recycled stuff that keeps coming up day after day, year after year, but the truly unique, inspired thoughts that are coming from you. So I hope that makes sense. Have an absolutely lovely day. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week.